In this brief reflection, let's consider how we might speak of an education for liberation, happiness, and authenticity. For many people, meaning in key areas of their lives is packaged and imposed on them by their dominant cultures. Many lack the skills to be able to question these versions of the world and how we are to live. They are passive consumers of other people's priorities, other people's definitions of what constitutes a successful, a well-lived and a meaningful life. At the end of apartheid in South Africa, Nelson Mandela warned his people that they were not yet free, that they had merely achieved the possibility of claiming their freedom. I think he was implying that true freedom is something that must be actively claimed by each person. The freedom to react, to choose and engage with the world on their own terms. The Brazilian educator, Paulo Freire, argued that education must help every individual to win back their right to say their own word and to name the world that they live in. One of the central concerns of education should be to equip our young people to critique their reality and make meaning for themselves. The education we offer should help our young people to look deeply at the world's recipes for success, happiness, and freedom, and be selective and critical as to what they accept. We want them to assess and challenge popular assumptions about the world and develop the capacity to analyze the causes and consequences of their lived reality. We offer the gospel's countercultural vision for what constitutes a good, meaningful, and well-lived life. We encourage our young people to live independently of the approval or good opinion of other people, intentionally and selectively, amid all of the wins and losses, successes, disappointments. No one is immune. We want them to unshackle themselves from unexamined opinions, inherited prejudices, so they live lives consistent with their own inner moral compasses. In a world of walls and closing borders, an education for liberation will free our young people from insular thinking, narrowness, and intolerance. It will aspire to build a culture of encounter, integration, and building bridges between people and cultures. Education where, to quote the Indian poet, educator, and Nobel Prize winner, Rabindranath Tagore, he said, "The world has not been broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls." Our young people should learn that the freedom and opportunities that they may enjoy through the good fortune of their births is not a license for them to do what they want. Rather, it should be the freedom to do what they ought to do for the making of a fairer and more just society. We must show them that freedom and service are inextricably linked, and assert that with privilege comes responsibility for the other. Pope Francis puts it this way. He said, "Perhaps it's thought that liberty is the ability to do whatever one wishes. This isn't liberty. Liberty means that we're able to reflect on what we do, to know how to appreciate what is good and what is bad, and to always choose the good." The education that we offer the young should consistently remind them that although they cannot control all the good and the bad, positive and negative in their lives, stuff that life will throw at them, we do have the freedom to control the way that we respond to these circumstances. The inner peace and happiness we will experience in our lives depends on us claiming this freedom. As survivor of the concentration camps, Viktor Frankl, the great psychologist, said, "Everything can be taken from us but the last of the human freedoms, the freedom to choose our spirit in any circumstance." It's a wonderful story of an Argentine golfer, Roberto de Vincenzo, who was quite famous in the 1960s. He was the first golfer from South America to make it on the big stage. There's a famous story of the day that Roberto won a golf tournament and he received his check for payment. In those days, professional golfers drove around from tournament to tournament. And he was in the car park, about to put his clubs in the boot of his car, when he was approached by a woman who had a baby in her arms. She said, "Mr. De Vincenzo, my baby is very sick and will die if he does not receive the right medicine. Can you please help me?" Without hesitation, Roberto signed over his winning check to the woman, saying to her, "There you go, lady. I hope your child enjoys many happy days." A week later, he was arriving at another PGA tournament when an official came up to him and said, "Roberto, I hear that you handed over your winner's check last week to a lady who said she had a sick baby." He said, "Yes, that's right." The official said, "Look, I'm sorry, my friend, but she fleeced you. She wasn't telling the truth. The lady was a fraud. The baby was not sick." Roberto thought for a moment and responded, "You mean there was no sick baby who was going to die?" The official said, "Yes." Roberto responded, "Well, that's the best news I've heard all year." Through his response, Roberto de Vincenzo demonstrated wonderful equanimity, freedom of heart. His reaction was that of a truly free person. We want our young to choose wisely and engage with the world on their own terms, to claim their freedom to love, to choose truth, to do good, to create the beautiful, but also to reject the ugly, the false, and the mean-spirited. How do we prepare them to make their contribution to the future, not just as cogs in a cycle of production and consumption, but as citizens, as lovers, as nurturers of families? We want them to resist shallow definitions of what constitutes a worthwhile, valuable, and meaningful life. To overcome this insular thinking, fear, narrowness, and intolerance. To reject versions of the world that determine success solely in terms of money, the accumulation of things, and an overemphasis on status and security. To understanding that not everything of value can be measured. They should learn that happiness cannot be purchased, travelled to, arrived at, owned, accumulated, worn, or consumed. That true happiness lies not through the continual promotion of our own self-interest, but through a life of service to other people. In some classic stories, the hero is the person who went out to slay a dragon who was threatening the hero's village. How do we become heroes? and do what we have to do, slay what we need to make our contribution to the world. The Greek roots of the word hero suggest that the hero is someone who can choose. The hero interprets life through his or her own experience. The journey of the hero leads to questioning and interrogation of the culture in which he lives. Who am I? What is valuable? How do I find peace and happiness? What does it mean to live justly? The hero is suspicious of easy answers that are readily available in their dominant cultures. Education must focus on creating heroes. The heroic life doesn't mean that we have to become something greater than we are, but it does require us to be faithful to our own authentic path. The hero is someone who gives his or her life to something bigger than themselves. To do this, we must slay our dragons, the dragon of envy, the dragon of the fear to be different, the dragon that tells us that near enough is good enough, and the dragon that tells us that it is okay to live a copied, inauthentic life. Friends, our human condition gives us one huge concession. We don't have to be perfect, just the best we can. Not perfect, yes, but authentic. May God bless us in this quest.